I have a dream this afternoon that the brotherhood of man will become a reality in this day. With this faith, I will go out, carve a tunnel of hope through the mountain of despair. With this faith, I will go out with you and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. With this faith, we will be able to achieve this new day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing with the Negroes in the spiritual world, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King must be turning over in his grave. That was an excerpt from his I Have a Dream speech in 1963 in Washington, D.C., claiming one day we will all be free. It is 2016, 56 years later, and we are still not free. Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and this is the legends of the original Inside Sports and the way we were. I want to take a look back at the little-known Black in American history fact. For those of you who don't know me, let me introduce myself. I am a pioneer in sports talk radio in American history. The definition of a pioneer is someone who goes first. In 1970, I went first with my sports radio talk format. I made my radio debut on WOOK in Washington, D.C. The title of the show, Inside Sports. The title was given to me by my wife, Hattie. I remember we were having dinner one evening as I was preparing to make my radio debut, and I said, Hattie, I need a title for my new radio show. Her immediate response was, Inside Sports. And sports talk in America has never been the same. The format, there was no topic inside of sports or outside of sports off the table. I was the first sports talk show host to write commentaries, the first to play message music with songs like Black and Proud, What's Going On by my homeboy and friend, the late Marvin Gaye. Who Shot the Sheriff? Respect Yourself. Someday we'll all be free. And my favorite, Wake Up Everybody. I was the first to host and convene a media roundtable, the first to openly discuss racism in pro sports and the plantation mentality found at sports media press tables at sporting events across America. If you have any doubts about racism being alive and well, the most segregated aisle in America can be found at a white church on any given Sunday morning, in a newspaper press room at deadline. On Inside Sports, there were discussions that centered around the plantation mentality of the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. Those plantation conditions still exist in 2016. For example, the NFL still has no black owners, but when 49er quarterback Colin Kaepernick refused to stand up for the American flag, league owners wanted to tar and feather him behind closed doors. Major League Baseball has no black owners, but there are still several designated so-called minority owners parading around in blackface claiming ownership. One of the best managers in the game, Dusty Baker, had to come into D.C. with his hat in hand to land a job with the Washington Nationals at a cut-rate salary. The NBA has one token owner in blackface, Michael Jordan. This is the same brother, when asked to support a black man in a political election in Charlotte, North Carolina, against a well-known racist, he said, Republicans buy Nikes too. The payoff, an NBA franchise for being a good boy. In the meantime, John Welsh, a writer working in the style section for the Washington Post in the late 70s, hijacks Inside Sports. The late owner, Katharine Graham, and son Donald gave him their blessings, and he took off for New York City to discover Inside Sports magazine. The paper's sports department was a regular guest on my show. On any given Saturday, you could find sports editor George Solomon, Brian Rosen, Dave Dupree, Dave Kendrick, Michael Wilbon, and Dave Aldrich in studio. It was like Christopher Columbus discovering America with the Indians already occupying the land. The Inside Sports magazine's lifespan was short, and Walsh and the Inside Sports format ended up at ESPN. Newsweek owns the trademark to Inside Sports, and the Washington Post owns Newsweek. So that should tell you something. Welsh recently retired from ESPN as a vice president. There were so many Washington Post sports media personalities on the payroll of ESPN, the Connecticut complex was called Washington Post North. The newspaper's reach was went beyond the sports department. Longtime commentary columnist Kobe King pulled the necessary strings to have his son hired as an editor. King's son followed the usual suspects like Michael Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser, Dave Aldrich, and the list goes on. The original Inside Sports was outside the lines in real sports long before ESPN and HBO. And Inside Sports was out of Compton long before NWA. Some people don't have a history of their own, and they don't want anyone else to have a history. I don't need to ask Henry Louis Gates, Ken Burns' ancestry, or the National African American Museum of History and Culture to look up my history to see who I am and where I came from. I already know my descendants were kings and queens and not the hoodlums and thugs as portrayed on today's television and movie screens. My American history is carved in stone at North Capitol and L Streets Northwest in Washington, D.C., in the shadows of the Capitol. My great-grandfather, the Reverend Alfred Tyler Johnson, laid the first brick to build historical Mount Airy Baptist Church in 1893. 2 blocks north of the church is a senior citizen complex, the Tyler House. It is named after my great-uncle, the Reverend Earl Tyler. The Tyler Bell family settled in D.C. in the early 1800s. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back to give you the 411 inside scoop on the benefactors of kids in trouble and Inside Sports who forgot who they are and where they came from. Some of your favorite people with names like Sugar Ray Leonard, Kathy Hughes, John Thompson, Dave Bing, to just name a few. I'll be right back.